Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial. This time we're going to speak about Ortho4XP version 1.30. There seems to be quite a few videos on YouTube that are way over the top of most people, and for the life of me, even I can't imagine why some people follow and do some of the things they do and suggest to other people. So I'm going to demystify it a little bit and give the ordinary guy in the street a fighting chance to actually get his own orthos. That said, I'm also not going to look at the advanced features in the program. I'm literally going to help you step by step to get going, and then obviously having this knowledge in hand, you are welcome to search for more knowledge, and then you will also be able to discern between what's just an absolute load of nonsense and what is actually useful. So step one is going to try and find the source files that you need to create Ortho4XP 1.30. For probably the longest time that I can imagine, 6 months or more, I've been looking for the source files, and so many of these videos tell you how good the program is and what you can do with it, but they don't tell you where to get the source files. And if you go to the GitHub, it's still on 1.2. And it really confused me, and it brought me to a point where I didn't even want to look for it anymore. It was like, "Ugh, if you don't want to give it to me, keep it. I'm not interested." Until one day that I just said to myself, "Come on, find it. It can't be that difficult," and it in fact is not that difficult. But you have to have somebody that tells you where to find it, and the easiest way of finding it is just this. This is step one. You need to go and find the developers forum on the explain.org. So we're going to type the detail in there. I'm going to give you all the links, don't worry, and then we're going to search Oscar's forum on the explain.org. Right, so we're going to find the forum, we're going to go there. Right, and the big trick, believe it or not, is this. The link to the Windows download for the files to create Ortho is in Oscar's uh, signature, in his forum signature. So you can when you're on this page, you can literally click on any one of his posts where he has replied. All right, and that will take you to one of his replies. There you can see it's him talking here, and at the bottom in his signature, you will find the Windows binary package for version 1.3, which we simply click on. Right, that takes us to his Google Drive, and then we just download it. We're gonna download anyway. All right, that brings us to the download folder and the zip file that actually contains the Ortho4XP, and that's the complete program. So what I do is I actually extract it. I'm going to just pull it off the screen and bring the extracted one up here for you guys. I've got a 6 terabyte hard drive where I've extracted this file too. So if we go back one step, let me bring the zip back up. We open the zip file, you see Ortho4XP. What I did was I simply dragged and dropped it into a file folder, hard drive, whatever you have of your choice, wherever you want this program to reside. It doesn't have an exe installer, so you literally put it where you want it. You can make some filing structure for yourself. What I then did was I added version 1.30 because at the time that I started using it, um, I was still using Ortho 1.2 as well because I was skeptical. I was afraid that it's not going to be what I think it is and all the other reasons you can think of. So what then happened was I ran two of them, and I started looking at the differences and teaching myself and seeing where I'm going with this. So for all practical intents and purposes, you don't have to rename it. You can just use it, with the file name as is. I just renamed mine for my purposes, as you heard. All right. What I then also did, because I've got a dedicated 6 TB hard drive, I actually created the Ortho Scenery folder for myself. All right. If we go in there, you will see the areas. So I created a folder structure for the areas that I wanted to create for myself. So I just want to delete that one. That's an old mistake that needs to go away now. So this just makes it easier for me and my mind to understand where I put what, and it's easier to go and find a mistake, and it's easier to just rectify. Like you just saw me, I deleted an old file that was broken, and I obviously created a new file to replace it. So this is my folder structure. If we go into let's take the USA for instance, because there's a lot. If we go into this folder structure, you will see we've got the overlays in here. Come on. And there's Sketchy down over there. And I'm just looking. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was looking at my own eyelets. That's the overlays for the greater USA, and that's for the Ketchikan area itself. Right, so it starts with our Y overlays, and then we've obviously got all the tiles that was created. So this is what I'm going to show you, how this works, and then how to get it into your Explain, and I'll give you some options for that as well. Our next step is to obviously get rid of our browser. We don't need all the browsers and downloads anymore, and we need to go back to where we actually going to use this program. So that's our download. Like we said, we're going to go into that. We're going to look for the binary, and it's going to be in here somewhere. Ortho4XP. There you go. Alright, so all you do is you're going to drag and drop with your right hand mouse button and select create a shortcut. And then you're going to have a shortcut wherever you put it. This is just my desktop, obviously, for the purposes of the tutorial. We can then go back up one folder. What we need to understand about version 1.3 is that there's a lot of information that's going to be downloaded into this folder structure. But version 1.3 gives us the ability to choose whether we want to use the folder that I made for myself to house and host my Ortho4XP files, or it will allow me to choose to actually make it directly inside of your Explain folder. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So you can choose where you want it to go. If you use it by default, the tile folder over here that's highlighted there is going to be the place where the Ortho4XP files are going to be generated and kept for you until you move it. Alright, so that's the default location. Inside of the root folder of Ortho4XP 1.3, we're going to also then find that the program will create an overlay folder. The overlay folder that's created will obviously then house the houses, the cars, the trees, and all the other stuff that goes on top of all your AutoGen that goes on top of your Ortho4XP tiles inside of Explain, and I'll explain to you how that works as well. Our next step is obviously now to start using this program. So we're going to fire it up, and this is the basics. Alright, so if we look at the screen, we see a latitude, a longitude. That's basically the default location where the first tile is going to be created, and that we're going to move just now. We then also find a drop-down list of all the service providers that is currently supported by default. I personally, depending on the recommended list that is available on the Threshold forum nowadays, and if you just Google that, you'll find the preferred list. I will use ARC in South Africa, but I will use Bing in Europe and America. And there are certain areas in America where Bing does not like to show you what's on the ground, so we use arc in those areas as well. And the other famous one obviously is the Google one that's over there, but I'll leave that up to you in your experimentation, and also reading the master list on the Threshold forum, which one you're going to choose for yourself there. So for our demonstration, we're going to stick to Bing. Our zoom level, I prefer 17. 17 is a good trade-off, as always, between quality and size. Alright, if you make it 16, you get a smaller size tile, resolution is going to be lower, so you've got to fly higher to see a better resolution. If you go like the next level, zoom level there, the higher you go to 18, whatever, I see it doesn't actually go further, so 18, it's going to be a massive tile with very good resolution, and this is where the advanced stuff will come in that you guys can go find, where the guys will show you how to make the tiles at 18 zoom level when you are around an airport and things like that. I'm not going to show you guys that. Then let's just put it back to 17. Alright, the base folder. This is what I was talking about earlier. If you leave it open and there's nothing inserted into this field, it will create your tiles for you in the default tiles folder inside of the Ortho4XP folder. So you can come and fetch them here. If you have a different location where you need to save the tiles to, you can click on that folder and it will put the tiles as it makes them into the specified folder. As a matter of interest, I'm going to click the folder and show you that it's pointing to my G drive, that 6 terabyte drive, and it basically makes those tiles for us in the root folder, which will then allow me to actually move it to the ortho specified folder that I showed you into the correct location. The next step in the process is to click on our configuration button, which is the spanner and the screwdriver there. So we click on the configuration. This is a step that you easily forget. So guys, please try and remember this. We need to specify the terrain, where it's going to get the terrain elevation data from, and by default viewfinder panorama is the one that I use. It's the first one that comes in the list. If you don't specify anything there, you're not going to get add-on mesh with your Ortho4XP. Alright, so it's up to you. I prefer getting the viewfinder panorama mesh, and then it makes me feel like I've got a more complete tile. The next thing that you need to definitely set up is your custom scenery directory. That is in your X-plane custom scenery. That's where you need to specify, and then you need to tell this program where it needs to get the information from for the overlays. And for me and my purposes here, I am actually using the X-plane global scenery folder. So there's your global scenery that you just specify, and then you click apply. Let's click it once or twice, make sure it takes it, and then we can exit. So that means that behind the scenes now in the brain of this program, it's been set up what we want to have happen with our tiles when we create them. The next step, as you can see, I'm going to just skip that little button there. I'm going directly to our Earth map, and those coordinates are the ones that you actually see at the top there, 48 minus 6. So it just shows you that's the default location where the first tile will be generated, but we're going to change that. So yesterday we were flying in Corfu, and I decided I want to make Corfu, I really want Ortho4XP in that area. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the left mouse button, and we're going to double click on the area that we want. Now that's the first step. The second step is now you're going to click your shift button and you're going to hold it down, and then you're going to mark the areas that you want. Now that's all we're going to take for now. We're not going to take more than that. Right. You can obviously use the shift button and now go and add a whole bunch of other areas, and you see if you click on it the second time, it actually takes it away. For the tutorial purposes, I'm definitely not going to make more than this, because it on my system takes approximately 45 minutes per tile. When we have a tile like the one on the left where there's more sea than land, that can probably take 5 to 10 minutes. It's fast, that's very quick. But the more land and the more things that it needs to consider in terms of data it needs to calculate and download and all these things, the longer it's going to take. And like I said, my average tile creation on Zoom level 17 is about 45 minutes. So we're just going to take those two, because as you can see, the island actually gets cut off at the very bottom, and to get the whole island in, we need the tile next to it as well. The next step in the process of creating Ortho4XP is to set up the batch build process. We do that by simply ticking all of these marks. We do not take the one that says read per tile CFG. Do not take that one. It's not for us in this tutorial and for what we're going to accomplish here. Right, so we wanted to assemble the vector data. We wanted it to triangulate 3D mesh, do the water masks, build the imagery, extract the overlays. That is what we want. And before we actually run the process, I was talking with you guys earlier about the provider, and also I'm just going to check that we are on the appropriate provider. In our instance here, we are going to use BI, and we are definitely going to use a Zoom level 17. We want the imaging the Ortho4XP to be created in the default tile folder within Ortho4XP, so we're not going to add anything into that placeholder for the specified folder. So we're just going to keep everything default for this tutorial. Right, so quickly coming back to our other screen, all that is left to do right now before we go and make coffee and sit back and relax and watch the magic happen is we just need to click on batch build. Right, the moment that you click on batch build, you can actually see it's starting to do something. At this point in time, depending on how many tiles you've selected, you are most welcome to fetch some coffee and come back a few minutes or a few hours later, and then we will take up the video from there, and I'll show you how to put it into XP in a way that it is then visible and usable. So guys, I've just returned with my cup of coffee, and I see the first tile is already done, which was super fast. If you look at the actual block, the red is gone. One of the things that you can do now, if you've got a whole bunch of blocks that have completed, just to see what has been done, you can just click on refresh, and it will tell you that we are done with a BI 17 block in that area. And if you obviously add more areas, it will all then show you the BI 17. There is something else that I've just realized that I should maybe mention to you guys. So if we look at the top here, you've got these little lines. You can see that it's full colored in on the outer two, and the inside one is busy creeping up. This is the progress bars. I'm not sure exactly which one depicts what exactly in the program, but this one in the middle is very clearly linked to the downloading of the actual texture files, and by the time that one reaches the end, then you'll obviously be done with the downloading side of things. So just thought I'd mention that to you guys, so you get some other indication of progress. Well guys, it seems the process has finished. The last tile has now been completed as well. It took 35 minutes and 54 seconds on that one. Another 8.31 seconds just for the overlays, because overlays are really fast to complete. Extracting from your local hard drive is obviously fast. So that concludes the whole process of actually creating Ortho. I've literally just taught you guys how to make your own Ortho. Our next step is obviously now going to be to install it and to set it up properly in Explain. So if you hang tight for a second, we're going to move over to that screen. Right, we're going to begin by just closing down our Ortho4XP. We're going to pull our Explain folder into the screen here, and then we're going to bring our Ortho4XP folder in here as well. That is our overlay folder that has just now been created, and for the purpose of this tutorial and also for the purpose of my own filing system, I'm just going to quickly add the area at the back. So we've got Corfu in there, and that will then obviously identify that for that area. Now, if you recall, in Ortho4XP, I told you to leave the destination folder space open, and that's obviously now gone and created the tiles for us in the default location as mentioned before. So we're just going to do the same here. I'll just copy that. All right, so we literally have the authors in place the way we want them right now. Now the rest is going to be a personalized thing. It's up to you how you do it. You can obviously move the overlay and these two folders directly into your custom scenery folder. Simply move them. That's the default way of doing things. Your Explain is going to start up. You're going to have to shut Explain down, and then you're going to have to set up the folder, the INI scenery pack structure so that everything goes and sits in the right place. I do it slightly differently, but I'm going to try and quickly make it as easy as possible for you. Because this is a tutorial, I'm going to quickly also show you another shortcut way of doing things. So what you want is these files obviously need to go into your custom scenery folder, but you don't have to physically move them. If you are sitting with a hard drive space issue specifically, that could be a problem. So what I would then recommend is, if you are like me and you have a dedicated hard drive for the purpose, you would simply move them into position where you want them to reside forever, and you will do this process. You're going to highlight them, and you're going to move with your right hand mouse button, and you're going to select create shortcut here. Right, so there you can also see my other shortcuts. I literally don't have enough space on this Explain hard drive to have 6 terabytes worth of Ortho, and the cheap trick here, and it works very well, believe me, is you just put the Ortho where you want it, drag and drop with your right hand mouse button and select create the shortcut, and it will put the scenery in place for you. The same goes for the overlays. So we're going to just say create the shortcut. Yeah. Right, so the next step is going to be to sort out the INI file, and the default way of doing it is just to start up Explain quickly. We're not going to go do a flight now because it's going to look terrible. It's just not going to be right. It's effectively going to put those scenery folders in the top of your scenery INI, and that's going to limit what you can see, because everything below that in that area is going to be blanked out, which is no good when you are flying in areas where you've got add-on sceneries and stuff. So we're going to start up until we get to the menu page. We're going to exit out of Explain and quickly fix the INI file manually. Alright, we have now arrived at our Explain menu page, and we are simply going to quit Explain. At this point in time, Explain would have rewritten the scenery INI file, and we can then go and edit that. So we're going to go back to our custom scenery, and we're going to find that file. Alright, and as you can see, exactly what I said, explain by default is now put the new scenery at the very top of the file, which is no good. It's not going to be any good in that area for any other scenery. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut them out of that position, and then we're going to simply go down to the bottom into our designated area. Alright, the correct place to have your Ortho4XP is right above your mesh, because your mesh always comes at the very bottom. Right above that is where you would then add your Ortho4XP information, and you always put the overlays above the actual tiles. The same principle apply that I was just speaking about a minute ago. If the overlays go below the tiles, you will also only see the photos, and you will have no autogen, no trees, no cars, no traffic, nothing, no buildings, nothing else on top. So the overlays, very importantly, need to be placed on top of the tiles that you created. Alright, when we are done with this, we can simply close the file, and we can fire up explain and go have a look, see what it looks like. Alright, I won't bore you with the whole loading process, so I'll pick up the video when we are actually standing at Corfu and we can look around a bit. And welcome to Corfu, guys. I've just spawned in with a Charlie 172, and I've noticed something in that Flight Tamper has actually created their own background. So we're not seeing any of our own orthos in this area at all. It's all under the blanket of whatever Flight Tamper did here. What I did notice is if we zoom out far enough and we actually go beyond the scope of the Flight Tamper scenery, we will pick it up. So you can clearly see this is all whatever blanket they put on there. Looks like default X-plane. And if we go far enough, there you can actually, nope, it's not that yet. There we go. That's where about it seems like, yeah, that's the ortho. So if we zoom in, we should be able to find like a seam somewhere where you can see the transition, and I think that's it. Let's just do it slower. So you can clearly start seeing also in this area. But if you zoom closer, there's the seam. There you can clearly see the seam. So unfortunately, this is like the Wieski design in Seattle. The scenery designers of the area obviously have put some other exclude or something in place, some blanket that is preventing our ortho from actually showing in the specific area. But if you zoom far enough, you can clearly see we now have ortho in the areas not covered by the scenery. So for that tile, then there's nothing much we can do, unfortunately. It's not a mistake on our side, it's just the way that Flight Tamper wanted it to be. So I'm pretty sure if we actually turn to the other side of the airport, we can actually do the same kind of a zoom situation, and there you go. There we have the other orthos come into play. No, that's not. That's something they have put in, because that's part of the scenery. So let's just zoom out a little bit more. There we go. There's our ortho. There you can also see the seam. So unfortunately, ortho is not going to mean a lot to us in this vicinity of the scenery that Flight Tamper made. But in terms of flying in from either the north or the south, we are going to see some of the ortho that we made. So that's unfortunately not something that I'm going to try and even fix in WED or whatever editor you want to think about. So at least you can see that the process worked, and it's at no fault of ours that we can only see it in certain areas now. And that's it, guys. That is how easy it is to actually make the orthos. I'll quickly close down, explain, and I'll show you how I put it into my own folder structure, just for argument's sake, and to just recap a little bit. So I'll be with you again shortly. And welcome back to my desktop, guys. This is now my dedicated ortho drive. I have physically moved my overlays and the two files that we created, the two tiles from Ortho4XP, into my grease folder, which is now this is the permanent position where they will always reside. So all I have to do now is I have to physically now use the right hand mouse button, drag and drop, and select create the shortcut into my explain custom scenery folder. If we then go to the overlays, you will see we've got Corfu in there. That's the overlay one, and then obviously if you start looking for it, it's going to be in that bunch of other shortcuts. You'll find the actual tiles, and that is how I basically do it. All right, now the same process that you've just done, that I've shown you, where you start explain and you allow the explain to go to the menu, then you stop it, then you go and edit the scenery INI pack. I'm going to have to do the same process, because obviously the shortcut is pointing, or was pointing, to a different location. The files are now in a new permanent location, so we're going to have to let XP find it again and put it in the INI file. Then we have to close XP, go to the scenery INI, and then just cut and paste like I showed you before. Go put it on top of your mesh. Right, for me and myself here, I would recommend that you guys invest the $10 in X Organizer, because it just makes it so much easier. I'm quickly going to start my X Organizer. I'm just going to show you. Everything is basically automated with this program. It automatically picks up that you have orthos. So you'll see my whole list over there, and you can see that it puts it into all the correct order. Right, so I've obviously got quite a bit. There's almost 6 terabytes worth of them. If it did not know what to do with those files, it would have told you it needs attention. Alright, so there's nothing in need attention, and we know that everything has been put in place. I just want to quickly have a look. See, there's the overlays, roads and overlays. That is where it will store the ortho overlays. So it obviously is above the ortho tiles, which will give you your autogen and everything. And because this X Organizer is set to auto save the INI scenery file, all I have to do now is just close it. So, I mean, imagine that. You don't really have to do anything. You start it up, it picks up where the information is, puts it in the right place, you close it down, and you can go and fly with your X-Plane and enjoy your orthos. Guys, I hope that has given you a little bit of insight into doing orthos, and I hope you guys enjoy making them and flying with them. I sure do, and I will look out for your videos and pictures as you post them after creating your own stuff. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and we will speak with each other soon again. Bye bye for now.